you got to wait a few more days. It's the 24th, so I've got about 2 more days. You can't do it until 90 days. So, but thank you for the reminder. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get it over with, because if I don't, I'll forget. But this is 10 years? Yeah, this be my 3rd time. 3rd time renewing my call sign. 10 years, right? Yeah. Yeah. So this will be the 3rd one. Over.
Roger. Yeah, I'm up for renewal next year in October. So yeah, I'm chomping at the bit. Anyways, pleasure talking with you, and thank you again for your service. Jeff, did you say you had served also? He may have stepped away for a moment. KW4CK.
Okay, Ron. Yeah, the last time I heard him, I thought his signal went down. I couldn't hear him as well as I did the first time. So, you know how this band goes. 40 meters kind of gets a little tricky in the evening.
Oh, yeah. One moment you're talking to your neighbor, next moment you're talking out of the country. Yeah, it'll go long in a split second.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, I got to share something with you. Here about 2 weeks ago, no, it was about a week and a half ago, someone in North Carolina, I forget the call sign, he had a live stream on YouTube, and he was doing a QRP test, call someone to call in, and they say, okay, start at 100 watts, go down to 50, go down to 20, see if you can make it all the way down to, 5 watts or something. Well, with the ICOM 7300, if you go down to 0%, you actually still putting out about a half a watt, like 500 milliwatts. Well, we did that, and I got a recording, so I go listen to how I sounded, right? And I left it that way. I forgot about it. Well, about 3 hours later, about 11 p.m., I went on 20, and the upper power is 20, and I heard some station in Spain calling CQ. I went back to him. He come right back to me and said I sounded great, 5.7. We started talking. We must have went back and forth 3 or 4 times. Then I realized I didn't have my power turned up. It was on 0%. Half a watt. Because I wasn't flat SWR, so it was probably about a half a watt, maybe 1 watt. And before I went back, I turned the power up to 100 watts, and he came back all surprised. He said, "Did you turn your amplifier on?" I couldn't believe it. A half a watt to Spain over.
Yeah, that's saying a lot, and that just goes to show how well your antenna system's working,
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, the doublet's pretty straightforward. It's a known antenna design. But this long wire that I put up was an experiment to start out with. I wanted to play around with the wire to see how I could maximize it. And I had an old DirecTV satellite dish. That little tripod they got mounted on the roof. Well, I don't use a dish anymore. I've got Comcast now, and they run a line underground up to my house. So I stripped that dish off there, and it made a perfect mount for an unon. So I put a 9-to-1 unon there. That's about 20 foot high. And I run a wire up and over the top of that 90-foot tree and over to another 90-foot tree. So it was about 80 feet, 85 foot is sloping, and then the other half is horizontal, almost like an inverted L, except with a slope in the first part of it. And then I thought, hey, why don't I just experiment and put several wires, lay them out on the rooftop opposite the sloper to be the other half of the antenna, the counterpoise. And man, that's what did it. I got about six or seven wires laid out in a radial fashion opposite the sloper. It's running straight north, and these wires are laid out from east to west, running, east to south to west. And man, that was the ticket, man. This thing works like a charm, so I'm not going to mess with it. I think if I lengthen the wire a little bit longer, I could do even better on 160. I can actually, use 160 meters with this wire. But I'm just going to leave it alone. And just to let you know how good it works, I've worked Scotland and England a few times on 160 meters. It was a little power then. I run about 500 watts. But I worked a mobile in Scotland and 2 stations in England on 160 meters. Over.
Oh, okay. Well, shoot, that's real good. Yeah, I've got an infit that I use on 160. On the back of this, I have a MFJ 998 auto tuner, and there's a single binding post on the back. So just for an experiment, just kind of for grins and giggles, I hooked up a 14 gauge stranded wire and run off that binding post and ran it outdoors. And it travels at about around 12 feet for off the ground for maybe 40, 50 feet, and then it kind of goes up in the air upwards of 70 feet, and it's kind of an inverted L configuration, kind of a sloper, and that wire is actually 141 feet long. I used an online calculator, and what I was trying to do was trying to see how many bands I could work off that one single wire. And so I've got it where it's not actually resonant anywhere except for 160, the very lower portion of 160. So 141 feet long is what it came up to with the velocity factor. Yeah, it's not really resonant anywhere except for the very lower portion of 160. But my tuner is able to tune it on every band, so it doesn't do bad. As far as comparing it against my fan dipole, the dipole kind of blows it out of the water because for 40 and 80 meter, it's hard to beat the dipole, against the non-resident, just random wire infit antenna, so I mean, but hey, on the other bands, it does fairly well. I was actually kind of surprised of it. For the actually using it on 160, it really amazed me.
Wow, that's incredible, and that's what I was shooting for when I put this antenna up. Mine is 155 foot long. Maybe I need to shorten it a little bit. Hey, I have to think about it because I know that Steve Ellington, I forget what his call sign is, he does a lot of, long inverted L's and different designs on YouTube. And 148 feet will definitely resonate on 160. For sure. I know 148 will, and anything longer, and now I'm finding out 141, like what you got there. That's interesting because on 160, my SWR is about 5.3, I think, and where it's close to resonating, it's about 3.2. But I've got a Palstar HF Auto, so I've got an automatic tuner also, so I can tune most every band. But I have a little bit of trouble with 15 meters. There's a couple spots in 15 that it's a little tricky. The tuner, it says it doesn't want to tune. I'll have to try to retune again or do it manually, go on manual and find the spot, And then if I'm using the amp, I don't leave it on auto. I'll put it on manual because I don't want it to go seeking, when I'm transmitting. But other than that, I can go, 160 through 10 meters. I haven't tried 6. I think I'm building the antenna for 6, but that's interesting. I may have to shorten my wire a little bit and check it out. But then again, like I said, I got those. I've got a 9-to-1 unon there at the feed point, and I've got a counterpoise stud on the opposite side of the antenna wire. So off that stud, I've got this little grounding block, and it's got several little screws on it. So I've got those 6 or 7 wires that lay out on my rooftop, and they range from, I think the longest one's 90 feet down to 20 feet. I didn't cut them no specific lengths. I just made them different lengths and threw them out there on the rooftop. So they kind of act as the other half of the antenna. you may want to do something like that because it kind of helps to balance out the end fed because you kind of got to have something to work against unless you got it running to like a ground stake over.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not using any kind of counterpoise, and it's just pushing against the actual station ground. Of course, my station ground, I do have a ground stake, and so I'll get everything grounded extremely well in here. So yeah, that's really all it's pushing against. And that was one of the reasons I was amazed how well it worked. Just sheer grins and giggles, purely for the experimenting. But yeah, I started out. What I used was an online calculator, and I was just looking through my notes. I don't see them in front of me, but I've got the website jotted down. But it was an online NFED calculator, and it essentially had where you can check which bands you wanted to operate. I tried checking everything for 160 through 6 meters, but I couldn't find anything within the 150-foot limit that would work. So at unchecked 6 meters, then you start seeing gaps. And what it does, it'll actually tell you the odd length multiples, so that you don't choose an incorrect length. Anything incorrect would pop up red and let you know that it wouldn't work somewhere. But you can select it for any bands that you want. And so I selected 10 through 160, and two of the empty spots that I noticed right away was just above 135 feet and just above 140 feet. So I trimmed for, there was another one up to right at 155. So I tried right about 155, and I really didn't, it was even lower for residents just below the 160 meter band. And the only thing I could figure was the velocity factor of the wire. So I took it into consideration. I went back and I refigured, and figuring in the velocity factor, it worked out to be minus 7%, and that brought me down to 141 feet. And I figured it was worth a try to try it here, and I've been incredibly happy with how well it turned out. And I was like, well, if I had to, I could always, trim about 6 more feet off of it, or rather, I was going to go with 5 feet. I didn't want to go right down to the 135 because I knew at 135 feet, it's actually closer to a quarter wave for 160, but it made odd multiples of 2 different bands. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I do remember there was a red mark on the graph there, so I couldn't choose 135. So I was going to choose roughly 136 or 137, but 141 seemed to be the magic number for me. Go ahead.
All right, AB5VJ returning. Wow, that's interesting. Hey, if you get a chance, you can find that link, or I may search around. He said it was an online calculator, and look for that. I'll have to do some more. I hate that Beagle fan. She makes so much noise. Do some experimenting because I was thinking about maybe I should shorten this just a little, but I hesitated because I didn't want to cut the wire no more. I got it up there as 155, but. Yeah, I may do that, because that was my original goal, to try to get it to resonate fairly well in the 160 meter band. And, anything non-resonant, I know that there's different lengths that, it'll work on more bands than less, or certain bands. And there's a certain length that's not good, and it'll give you higher SWR. But I was curious, are you using a 9-to-1 as far as your transformer?
Well, I'm using the actual tuner. There's a single binding post on the rear of the MFJ 998 auto tuner, and so I brought the 14 gauge wire straight into the shack here, and stripped back the end of it and wrapped it around the lug, and well, there you have it.
Oh, okay, yeah, you did tell me that. You sure did. Well, you know, this Pal-Star that I've got only has SO238s. That's the only thing that I don't like about this auto tuner. It doesn't have a single wire. Now, I've got another tuner here. I've got an Ameritron ATR30. That's the big boy. It'll take legal limit. But it's a manual one. It's got that big roller inductor. It's a T-tuner, but I can put ladder line straight to the back or a single wire. And I did that in the past. I had a single wire, but I never tried 141 feet. So I'm curious now. That's what I like to do, though. I like messing around with antennas and home brewing. Trying different things because you never know. What's gonna work out. And everyone's location is different. The ground is different. Up here on this mountaintop, I got a lot of rocks. The ground is not so good up here, so all that stuff goes into play. And the length, the height, where you have it, what the slope is. But it sounds like you got it going. You were, the last two transmissions, you were 20 over S9.
Yeah, okay, all right, well, fine business. And Dan, you're in luck. And you're also 20 over, by the way. I just found the website. Are you ready to copy it?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Kilo 7 MEM.com. So K7MEM.com. Kilo 7 Mike Echo Mike.com. And if you scroll down the page, there's a lot of really good info there on infed antennas. And if you scroll about halfway down the page, there is a infed calculator, and you can check the bands that you want to work, and you'll notice right away that there'll be red marks on the length of footage from 0 to 150, and it'll tell you where not to make it. So you can actually play around with it a little bit. KW40K25.
All right. Well, hey, Ron, that's great. I may just take a switch. I got a couple switches mounted on the side of my shack desk here on the upper part where the shelves are at. And I may put this old roller inductor tuner back into service. I may run a wire off that and do the same thing that you did so I can test another wire. Oh, and I want to pass something else on to you. For quite a while, several years, I've been using, just box store, copper wire, the THHN, the stuff you get from Lowe's or in those type of stores. And it works good. It worked good for a few years, but if you got a lot of winds, like here, I'm up on the mountaintop, sometimes the wind gets really strong up here. I found out that I buy that stuff that's called Poly Stealth. If you go to HRO and you type in Poly Stealth, like, something that's secret stealth, Poly Stealth, and it's AWG 13. It's 13 gauge. That's an odd number. Normally you don't see 13 too much, but it's AWG 13, and it's copper-clad steel. So it's copper with about 7 strands of steel in the middle, and the outer coating is polyethylene. It's that real strong stuff. It's not abrasion proof, but it's abrasion resistant. So if you have it like hanging over a tree, like I got the wire going right in the top of a tree, right over the top of the branches, it can rub and rub for like a year or two, and it won't put a dent in the wire. The stuff is very strong, so it won't, rub the insulation off. But that stuff runs a little bit. 500-foot roll is about 120, I think. But it's well worth it because it's strong. I mean, that stuff, you definitely got to cut it with some diagonal cutters because it's some strong wires. So if you want to throw up like a loop or something, like a 80-meter or a 160-meter loop, up in the trees, you'll want to get something like that. That copper-clad stuff works real good. It doesn't snap. And, you know, you always got to leave a little bit of slack in your antenna, so you never want to pull it taut. You probably already figured that out there with the long wire, but a lot of times when you put a loop up, same thing applies. You don't want to have it super tight unless you got it on, you know, separate towers or poles or something like that, because the trees will move. My tallest tree, I think, is 115 foot tall, and it's actually two trunks that are almost straight vertical up to that over 100 foot tall, and they just happen to grow that way. They grow vertical, both of them right next to each other, at least about 90 foot. They're right next to each other, the trunks, and that one there is 115 foot tall. But man, when the wind gets to blowing, my doublet is on one half on that tree. One half of my doublet is hanging off that tree, and yeah, when the winds get up there, you know, 60, 70 mile an hour, man, them trees are alive, that's for sure. Over.
Yeah, okay. All right, fine business. Yeah, I was just looking at the poly stuff as you were talking, and that's pretty interesting. I can't believe I hadn't run across that yet. Yeah, as far as my wires, I've got them up with pulleys, and I have counterweight mechanisms, and that really helps me out in case you know, Mother Nature's always trying to redesign the antennas. So you know, if Mother Nature decides to drop a tree or drop a tree limb, you know, a lot of times, you know, things will give, and you know, a lot of times it's a little bit more forgiving. It's been a while since I've actually snapped a wire, but I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. I need to knock on wood, because Mother Nature will throw me a curveball tonight, and I'll come out and find it tomorrow. And just because I've been talking about it, go ahead.
KW4CK, AB5BJ. Yeah, that's when it'll happen. I tell you what, when you're least thinking about it, I had it happen once to me already, so that's why I looked into something stronger, and found that stuff, and you can get it from HRO. You can get it in a 500-foot spool. I don't know if it's any cheaper anywhere else. I guess, you know, I could kind of look more carefully. You might be able to find it cheaper, but that's not too bad for the wire. It is. That 500-foot spool is real heavy. It's some strong stuff, and like I said, it's 13 gauge, just a little bigger than 12, but it's some strong stuff, and I would only use that if I put up a loop. It's great for the long wire, but if I'm thinking about putting a loop up there, maybe a sky wire, and I think I'm going to do that, and I'm going to build another doublet with 600 ohm ladder line, and my insulators, I'm using those 4-inch electric fence spacers from Tractor Supply. They're like 4 inches long, and they're really light, and they work perfect, you know, with those UV zip ties, and I'm going to use that copper-clad steel, so I know that ladder line's not going to break at all. This one here's got 14 gauge wire, the ladder line that I'm using now, and it's broke once already. I had to go up there with a little torch, and luckily it was near, you know, I could get to it from a ladder. I didn't have to lower the antenna. But that doublet, I've got one end of it, I've got a pulley up there, but the other side, I don't know what happened. The branch got messed up in there. It snagged the pulley or whatever, so that side doesn't slide up and down anymore. So sometimes you got to be careful. You know, your wires, they'll kind of grow into the tree branch, and then you're stuck. You can't get it down over.
Oh yeah, you're right about that, and you know, it doesn't take long either for the tree to grow around that stuff. it really doesn't. You think you got a little bit of time there, but no, it grows around it much faster than you think it does. Especially, you know, if it's kind of dangling in the wind, so to speak, you know, and so you know, you've got the weight of all that working against it all the time. So it's essentially sawing into it as the tree tries to grow around it. KW4CK. Yes, sir.
K9AGR. Go ahead and take one. AB5BJ. Hello, this is Dan here, Delta Alpha November. I'm in Pennsylvania, South Central Pennsylvania, just southwest of Gettysburg. The name is Dan, Delta Alpha November. And you got Ron over on the other end. He'll come back to you in a minute. Go ahead.
Roger, Ron. Yeah, I've been listening. Over here is Eddie. Echo, Delta, Delta, in the Echo. I'm in Denver, Indiana. And I'm on 7300 on a round mounted 1888 Cushcraft antenna. It's probably about 18 feet tall and with about 8.5 ground radios on the ground high. But it's just you guys are way above my grade by a lot. Listen, you guys talk about your antennas, over.
Oh yeah, we just talking about what we've experimented with. Nothing too serious. But hey, I'll go ahead and turn the mic over to Ron there. I've got to step back for just a minute. I'll be back in here though. AB5BJ.
Yeah, Dan, the name was Joe. Ron was the other guy. I'm not sure where he went. Ronnie, are you still in there? KN4PTT, KW4CK.
Oh, sorry about that, Joe. And I've got Joe written right on your call. You know what? I got your call written here twice. Ronnie's KN4PTT, right?
Yes.
Okay. You see, I make mistakes too.
Yeah, I believe he jumped out. I didn't catch the other gentleman's call. My apologies. I wasn't paying attention. KW4CK. Yeah, KW4CK. This is Kilo Delta 9. Hotel Golf Romeo, or better known as Homegrown Vegas, Eddie, in Denver, Indiana. Yeah, I had a little bit of a static crash. You said KD9HG question mark? Yeah, okay, all right. Ed or Eddie, which do you prefer? Either one. People just call me Special Ed. It's a nickname from way back, and it's a term of endearment. Somebody's been able to make fun of me at one time, but I used it in my career, and it's stuck with me, over. Yeah, okay, all right. Well, yeah, I kind of like that, Special Ed. Yeah, pleasure to meet you today on 40 meters. Yeah, the call is Kilo Whiskey 4 Charlie Kilo. The name is Joe Julia Oscar Echo, and I'm here in central North Carolina, a little small town called Roxboro, about 45 miles north of Raleigh. I'm currently using a MTDX10 Yaesu with the SB220 amplifier. Don't have it dialed up real high. Coming in at about a kilowatt or so, maybe a little more. And it's a fan dipole for 80 and 40 meters. The 80 meter section is east and west, and it's flat top. The 40 meter section is north and south, and it's actually inverted V, fed up to a pizza coax with a 1-to-1 belly. Go ahead. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, fine business. Yeah, I've got a great copy on you. You're an actual true 5'9" into central North Carolina. No problem hearing you at all. You know, I've got a friend of mine that lives over in Muncie, Indiana. How far away are you from Muncie? Yeah, okay. All right, Roger. Yeah, I haven't talked to him in quite a bit. I actually met him playing video games online of all places. Wouldn't you figure? That's kind of odd, isn't it?